Welcome to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast. Real people doing real deals in real estate and no fake gurus allowed. We bring you the best and the most real estate investors in the space. They'll be showing you the good, the bad, and the ugly of real estate investing. Like, share, subscribe, get notified. It's the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast.
Welcome to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today, we have one of Houston's top real estate investors when it comes to multifamily, Mr. Boris Sanchez. Thank you so much for coming, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you having me.
So tell me, Boris, where do you come from? Like, how do you get started in this whole real estate world?
Well, you know, I have I'm from Colombia. Been here 24, 25 years. And my family actually had a real estate company, a mortgage and a realty company called Gold Quest. My mom started it back in 2000, but I actually didn't join until I came back from London, where I got my master's degree.
Okay.
And
now, where do you go to high school? Here in Houston?
I went to Dobie
okay.
High School.
So you pretty much grew up here.
Yeah, I'm a Texas boy.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I joined the real estate world, I guess, in 2011. I came back and then started off as a mortgage broker, started learning about financial products, and then I started investing into residential real estate, and then eventually into commercial. My first commercial property was in 2013. It was a 8-unit complex that I did really well on.
Okay. Why do you go from... So why let me go back. So you joined as a mortgage broker, but it was your family's business, right?
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what make you go to, like, say, okay, I'm going to go flip houses? I'm pretty sure that's what you did, right? Buy a rental or a flip or something like that.
I was following the crowd.
Dude, I did the same thing. I did the same thing, and I was like, man, I wish I would have never done that, but, you know.
Yeah, I know. I wish I would have gotten started so much earlier, you know. But I'm setting up all these examples because I kind of want people to just kind of learn from my mistakes, and that's exactly what I try to teach to my clients and students. But so I started following the crowd, and I said, hey, you know, everybody else is doing it. Why not, you know, flip houses and all that? And it was at first flipping, you know, and then cash flow became popular. And then so I was trying to do cash flow. But then what I quickly realized is that I didn't like residential. I didn't like to be cornered into one of three things: flipping, owner financing, or renting. Mm-hmm. You can't do a combination of the three, you know?
Right.
So, and that's what eventually brought me to commercial. Was seeking $1,000 in cash flow in my first deal. And I ended up buying, you know, an 8-unit complex, and I bought it for $140. I fixed it up with $60,000. Only brought $10,000 to closing because of hard money.
Right.
I don't know the way it works. And I was able to sell it a year later for $450, making, you know, more than $250,000 in net profit, including rents. So I was ecstatic. You know, obviously it was then that I decided, okay, I'm obviously doing something right. I want to keep on doing this. You know,
finding more deals like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and you went to school in London?
I went to school in London, yeah. So I went to school for...
best city in the world is what they say.
My MBA was there. It was the best city to spend your money in, for sure.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It was very expensive. So that humbled me a lot, that experience.
Really? Why?
I was flat broke. I was literally the brokest student in my MBA class.
Wow.
I couldn't afford a pair of jeans. You know, I couldn't afford the train, to take the train. So I had to rent a bike and then go everywhere. And I lost a lot of weight. I got to see London a lot. I had a job as a bartender and as a waiter for this events company, and it humbled me a lot because it even though I had a clear path of like, okay, I'm gonna graduate, it actually motivated me to be like, okay, I never want to be that broke. I never want to be that person that's like, oh,
Just trying to make ends meet.
Yeah. So that actually fueled me a lot to go into real estate.
Wow. And so when did you graduate? What year? 2010?
For my MBA?
Yeah.
2011.
2011. And then you came to the U.S. You started working as a mortgage broker. What didn't you like about being a mortgage broker?
It was around then that Obama kind of changed the law for mortgage brokers. And I was started off with residential mortgage brokering, and I had my license and everything. I was a loan officer. But then Obama changed the law, and you could only make 3 points, including all the fees, which meant for us brokers that we couldn't make much more money.
Right.
You know, so it was then that I was like, oh, screw it. I'm going to go into commercial because I can charge more. And then that's when I started, exploring more of the financial products for commercial, hard money for commercial. I was pretty much one of the first ones in Houston to try hard money, like the traditional flip loan on commercial.
Okay.
In Houston, and it went very well, and it was very successful for my lender.
Good deal. And are you involved in those in mortgage anymore, or you're completely out?
No, I'm completely out, man. I mean, my company, we do a little bit of different things. Sanmore Investments is 2 companies.
Right.
First, on one side, we own over 450 units here in Houston.
Okay.
And then the other side, we do a brokerage. And then what's special about the brokerage is we're able to package deals up with our property. So, example, instead of me telling you, here's a 12-unit complex for $500,000, figure it out, we instead say, okay, here's a 12-unit complex, bring us $25,000 to closing, and then we'll set up the whole loan and everything for you, including rehab and everything like that.
And you do the pre-qualification for the buyer on the brokerage side.
We do a pre-qual not only for the hard money, but also for the refi takeout that eventually you're going to want. You're going to want to be taken out of the hard money, that expensive loan, into more of a long-term loan. And that's what we do even before we start this whole process.
Good. So 450 units, is it doors or individual units?
Doors.
Doors.
Yeah.
Okay. So your first one was 8 doors, right?
Yes.
So how hard was to go from 8 to, I don't know, 100? How long did that take you? Because people see you today, right? And they're like, okay, here's Boris. He's got 450 doors. Right. But that didn't happen overnight.
No, it didn't happen overnight. One thing about me is maybe I'm a little stubborn, or maybe I don't know. I'm just built a little different.
Right.
I never had a guru or a mentor. Back when I started doing commercial real estate, it was really unheard of. It was back like maybe 20 years ago. Investing in multifamily was like, why are you doing that? Why are you messing with that? Ew, gross. It's kind of like nobody really wanted that. And it was only about maybe 5, 6, 7 years that it became sexy to do so, and the Grant Cardones of the world came out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I started doing it like right as we were exiting that phase of ugliness, right?
Right.
And so all I was seeking was cash flow, but the information was not as abundant. It wasn't really well known how to.
You couldn't go on YouTube and Google how to get an apartment complex. And
I mean, you could possibly do that, but you'd have to know what you're looking for.
Right.
What information you're looking. So you have to know what you don't know, and that's the problem. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I started kind of like just doing trial and error. I started after my 8, I got a 15 and another 8 and 7 and this and that. I started kind of playing around that field. And then it wasn't until 2017, like a week after Harvey happened, that I got my first 40 unit, which is, it's a large one for me at that point. It's a medium-sized one now, but it actually put in perspective the whole grandeur and the scope of what I could possibly be doing, not only with an 8 unit making $250,000, but with that 40 unit, it was a 46 unit. I ended up making more than $1.5 million.
Wow. So now, did you sell it or?
I ultimately sold it. So I acquired that property in 2017. It didn't flood, but it was just a weird time to be around Harvey time in Houston. Right. But so I bought it for 1.7. I put in about $500,000, and 8 months after acquisition, I was able to refinance, cash out $800,000 out. it was great because it's $800,000 of tax free money, that you can do whatever you want with. Obviously, hopefully you're smart about it.
Yeah, you put it to work.
Yeah, you put it to work, and then you're able to scale up your operation, which is exactly what I did.
So you just went and said, okay, I'm gonna go buy another 40 units here or 50 units there, and that's how you got to 450 pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. I just started buying. I mean, I've sold a lot. In multifamily and in commercial, it's not so simple as BRRRR. You know what I mean? It's not that simple. It's buy, fix, rent, stabilize, and then analyze, which is like, okay, what's the best way forward? Sometimes the best way forward is a sale. Absolutely. You have other depreciation here. You don't mind, making $600,000 on this flip here. So you kind of have to analyze, but in order to analyze, you have to know your financial products. You have to know your ways out,
Right.
I was talking about how I don't like residential because I think in my world, it's riskier to do residential than commercial because of the only 3 ways out of residential that I talked about. But in commercial, it's like the fuller the property is, the more people are going to want it, right?
Attractive,
not only that, but it's actually valued for more.
Right.
It's called forced appreciation, right? And so I started playing with that a lot. And I was, able to even get, my largest one to date is a 100-unit complex that I bought as a 72. And I started splitting units up because they were huge, eventually getting to 100. And I bought that one for $3.4 million. We're spending about $1.5 million on it. But we just got an appraisal in that as finished, the property is worth $9 million. And we're finishing up the last 3 units this month.
So I'm going to assume that you're going to refi those out.
Yes.
Cash out first.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then later on, you'll decide whether you keep it moving forward or you sell it.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is there's this like kind of great program from FHA and HUD that gives you like the best in multifamily financing. It's like 30 up to 42-year amortization, fixed for the entire time, rates in 2%,
Wow.
So it allows you to cash flow for a long time, and so it gives you 80% of value, whatever it is. So for me, 80% of that value would be like $7 million. I'm able to cash out maybe $1.5 to $2 million.
Right.
Get all my money back invested in it. Keep the property. Keep the depreciation. Cash flow for a long time, and then maybe at some point in the future sell it if I decide at that point. Right. So multifamily is not just simple as buy, renovate, rent, repeat, or refinance, repeat. Right. It's more like it's more analytical, and there's multiple ways out of a property.
Yeah, you have to be more sophisticated for it, right? Like you have to understand numbers, how the products work. Like you just mentioned something about, Fannie Mae, right?
HUD and
FHA, right? So if you're just relying on the regular loans that are out there, you're probably not going to find the ones that you need for those kind of transactions, right?
Right, exactly.
You have to dig into it in order to go and say, okay, I have this commercial package here. This is where I go for this type of loans, and this is how you do it. And by the way, they don't do that at the regular mortgage, office, right?
Exactly.
So I was talking to another guy. I'm a wholesaler, right? And this other guy is a wholesaler as well, but he does commercials. And you might have heard of him. His name is Tim Luna.
Oh yeah.
And Tim, we were in a mastermind together, and he was explaining how he was getting these deals, right? But I looked at him. I said, man, but you're talking to sophisticated people, because a lot of these owners on multifamilies, even though they've owned these properties for maybe 20 years or 30 years or whatnot, they somehow have a level of sophistication that the regular homeowner doesn't have. They understand appreciation, depreciation. If they have a good, CPA, right?
Right.
A lot of them are mom and pops, and they just stuff the money under the mattress or whatnot.
Right.
But I was asking him, it's like, dude, how do you get these deals? He's like, man, sometimes it takes me 6 months to a year just to get one.
Yes.
Let's talk about that process for a little bit, right? From your perspective, when you're hunting for deals, usually how long does it take to capitalize on one of them and say, okay, I'm buying this one, in 6 months or whatever?
I mean, there's a reason, and I have the whole complete operation, vertical operation in my brokerage. We have cold callers, we have realtors, we have analytical folks, and it is actually a very much of a relationship based kind of more business. In residential, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of emotional attachment to a property, personal emotional attachment, but it's only emotional. It's not financially, like, it doesn't make them a living, right? They have their home is where they are, and it doesn't there's not a cash flow perspective from it, right?
Right.
So that's why it's more relationship based. It takes a little bit more to kind of develop rapport, especially with mom and pop shops. Maybe with like the large groups, they know exactly what they want. They know their price. They have all their books lined up. But most of the time, what I found out and what Tim Luna does and what I do, we love value add properties over turnkey. And that's because it's like a wealth generation technique. It's, I think, the best kept secret that's not a secret is how to analyze these properties. And I think a lot of the mental stigma comes from just that. It's just that, they're numbers and they're complicated and all this, but really it's not that complicated. It's an operating statement. You have to know, what the local cap rate is and how to evaluate a property. But if you do so, you can actually make a ton of money, not from cash flow. That's another thing I don't believe in is cash flow before you actually, have a buttload of properties. I believe in forced appreciation because that's the quickest way to wealth generation. It's not cash flow. Cash flow is a wealth maintainer.
Yeah.
Forced appreciation is a wealth generator. And that's what I don't think is talked about enough. So if you kind of understand these concepts about how to, evaluate property and how to evaluate, commercial property and how to actually see a diamond in the rough. Like I tell my team all the time, I love looking at ugly. I love it, man. I was just in LaPorte yesterday looking at this really ugly property, and I was like, man, I love it, And some people don't understand
because you see the potential in it.
I see the potential in it. Like, I'm buying it for, $900,000, but it's going to be worth $1.6 million when we finish, So I see that, and that's what I'm in love with, It's not so much the numbers and all this stuff, but actually the transgression of making that property go from this to that.
Yeah. Back in 2009, I used to ride around 77033, and that's all I saw was like potential, right? Because everything was completely turned down, right? It was like war zone.
Yeah.
And my mom would look at me and say, "Son, are you crazy? Like, look at this is horrible." And I was like, "Mom, they all got an upside, Like if you fix them up and rent them, then because that's the game I was playing back then." But I completely understand what you're saying. When you go look at an ugly property or something that needs a lot of work, you see the value in it, the potential in it, especially after doing it for 10 years now, 2021. So you've been in it for 10 years, going for 10. You're a 10-year overnight success.
Yeah.
Plus your college days, right? So yeah, people they see a lot of us and they say, "Oh man, this guy, he's making money, or he's got, the apartments or the cars or whatever." They don't see what took to where you came from all the way until you are today, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I want to describe the journey, is because it's not an overnight, this doesn't happen overnight. No. For some people, might happen quicker. Like, let's say I'm your student. Now, my chances to get to where you are going to be sooner. It's quicker because I'm leveling up with you.
Exactly.
Because you're dumping your knowledge into me, and I don't have to go figure it out on my own.
Exactly.
So, guys, you guys want to learn about multifamily, reach out to Boris. I don't know, are you teaching?
I am teaching.
You are teaching.
A mentoring course. It starts the next one starts January 8th.
Okay.
Which is, I think, a Saturday or Sunday. And, I can't wait. I already have a couple of people signed up, and we're limiting it to 10. I believe in teaching small groups instead of big groups. I think just people in big groups, they don't get to learn as much. because I don't know, maybe it's just human nature not to raise your hand when you don't understand something because you don't want to look dumb.
Right.
That's why I believe in like small groups.
Man, I've been to some large events, multifamily related, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think those events, more than teaching, is more for raising their own money, because they do syndications and things of that nature, right?
Correct. I have so I was saying earlier how I'm kind of like a little different. I am anti-syndication.
Okay.
I don't believe that that's the way forward. I believe right now the natural trend for an investor is to go from residential to like maybe have like a lot of residential and then go into syndication like magically.
Right.
But there isn't that's the popular way to go. But really, it should be like go from residential briefly, just so you can learn
how to handle contractors on a house.
Exactly, and then rentals, and then go into small multifamily, larger multifamily, and then syndication eventually. But syndication is only after and have personal experience with forced appreciation. Not just, going out there and then, raising funds and going to these events and then, I want to be a syndicator too. It's great. Yes, you're going to be investing multifamily, but really you're investing in a passive investment kind of scheme.
Unless you are the sponsor,
even
right?
Then, because even if you're a sponsor, a lot of the times you have to raise the entire, 97% of the down payment, right? You're having maybe you're bringing a little bit of money yourself, but then that means you get to keep 3%, maybe 5% of the entire deal. And everyone's eyes are on you, so it's like the responsibility, not only that, but to the SEC to make sure you're not a crook, to all that stuff is like very heavy on somebody, right?
It's a lot, man. I did a fund a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And that thing was like this thick. And I'm reading, right? And the crazy thing is that as a sponsor, you send that to investors. I did a 506B. And they're literally signing their money away, honestly, because, if you have a good attorney that's putting that paperwork together. I read it and I was like, man, how am I going to sign this? And people sign these things blindly because it's Boris or Ricardo or whoever else is out there.
They just believe in you.
They just believe in you and they go, yep, here's my money. Oh, if I lose the money, who cares, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like with people, you only get one chance. If you start to if it happens because we're human. If we mess it up on a deal and we lose people's money, I don't know about anybody else, but I couldn't stomach that. I don't take any investors on for that same reasons because, look, I know what I'm doing and I know my transgression and I know my journey, but I get asked this all the time. It's like, how can I invest with you? How can just let me put my money to work with you? I'm like, well, let me do you one better. Let me teach you how you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because then I enjoy my freedom, man. I buy toys. I'm kind of loud and dumb but that's because I can afford to be because it's all my own money. Worst comes to worst, it's my lenders that take a hit, but the lenders also have an asset already that they already know what to do with.
That's true story, Boris, and that's great that you're talking about that. In 2017, we were arguably probably the biggest flipping company in the whole area. Okay, we were doing about 47 projects, fixing flips all over Houston. I mean, we went from Freeport all the way to Conroe, and Harvey hits.
Yep.
And now I got 47 properties, and I have no workers because they all literally jump bail to go do demolitions, right?
Right.
Well, I was going broke real quick, like fast. Sure. We were slashing $200,000 a month just on interest payments.
Jesus.
But before Harvey, my business partner and I at the time were looking at toys. Mm-hmm. Lambos and Ferraris, and we had the money to buy those things cash, no problems, right? And Dennis tells me, Ricardo, man, let's just wait until December. Let's get it for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why wait until Christmas, dude? Like, we got a lot of money. Like, we had 7 digits in our checking accounts, no big deal. But he's an engineer, so he was very, very cautious. He didn't want to be outside the box. He didn't want to be flashy, even though he loves those cars. Like, he's on all the blogs and all the forums and groups and all that. And I just listened to him. And then going after what we went the next 2 years, I would have looked like a dumbass driving one of those cars, going broke, looking at my lenders, saying, "Hey, man, by the way, I'm driving a Ferrari or a Lambo or whatever," because you're playing with somebody else's, or literally investing somebody else's money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I completely get where you're coming from.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly why I just don't believe in syndication until, or even passive investments until you have at least $1 million in your account. You know, if you can put that money to play, $1 million, you make 8%. That's $80,000 a year. It's not terrible. The problem is that when that dream gets sold to somebody who has 100,000, 8% a year for somebody who has 100,000 is $8,000 a year.
The risk is high.
It doesn't, like, not even the homeless live for that. You know what I mean? You need more money nowadays to actually live. So that means that you have to find another technique for wealth generation, and that's when forced appreciation comes in, and that is really only experienced through active investments. That means that you are 100% owner, or maybe you have one partner or something like that. Keep it really small, that you can experience that growth of a property value-wise.
That's what I do now. I just do it on my own. I don't even bring on partners anymore. Like, right. I don't care for the down payment. You know, I figured it out on my own how to get in the property. Because of what I went through I lost more than $10 million. So, you know, and I had to go face foreclosures and lenders, you know, barking at me and all that, right? So I was like, man, I'm never going to go that route again. But I didn't know any better. Why is that? Because I was chasing the shiny objects.
Right.
Big operation, scaling up.
Sure.
Cash flow on rentals, on houses, which I don't even like being a landlord, to be honest with you, you know? So,
who does?
Yeah. Well, you know, but you know, you have to do it if you really want to, you know, be a professional in this business, right?
Well, you have to kind of like know what your management style is. Right. My first 8-unit complex, I managed it all myself. You know, I did the tenants on toilets, and whenever something was broken, I had to literally go out there with the maintenance man. So it was there, and it was like a learning process for me, because I learned what kind of manager I am, you know? And it was then that I started hiring people that were similar to me and that I could train to be like me. Now, I can't remember the last time I spoke to a tenant.
Right.
And sometimes that's by design too, because, sometimes I'll get the occasional call, like, you know, from a tenant, oh, yeah, I finally got a hold of the owner. And then what I've kind of empowered my people to do is actually be better and more lenient than I am. So they'll tell them, like, okay, you can call the owner, but it'll be worse for you, you know, because when they usually get a hold of me, I am a dick. You know?
Right.
I'm just like, you know, you don't want to do that, because then it kind of be worse for you. I'll be, you know, evicting you immediately. I'm not going to allow any leeway or anything like that. Your best bet is with a manager. And so I've empowered my people to make a lot of decisions and stuff like that. And that way, it kind of freed me up from having to do those menial tasks or those decisions on a tenant-per-tenant basis.
That's good. Yeah, so I can relate. I don't own many properties anymore, and I don't want to probably own a property for a little while. I love my freedom now.
Yeah.
So, but eventually I will get back on it, and everything that I buy is owner finance to me. Like, literally, I just negotiate owner finance to me, and then I either refinance them out or whatever on a balloon note, or, you know, just to take control of the property.
Sure.
But you were talking about being delegating, right? And I see we have a friend in common, Jonathan Chacon, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's all over. He's all over with his tenants, man. I talk to him every now and then, and you know, it's the stories I hear. I was like, Jonathan, I told you, man, like, you know, why are you doing this to yourself? Yeah. So, but we all grow through that, right? Otherwise, how do we learn what's good and what's not good? Unfortunately, we're human beings, and we learn by getting, you know, bit by the snake or burned by the fire.
Right. Exactly.
Because, you know, nowadays, how many people you have on your team?
I have Sanmore Investments has 25 people plus about 32 contractors.
Wow. So 25 full-time people in your office, basically handling all these doors, right?
Right. Exactly.
And doing new acquisitions and that kind of deal.
Yeah.
And then you subcontract, you know, roofers and, you know.
I employ a project manager, and we directly employ those contractors. So
okay.
we pay them hourly, and he's over them and all that stuff. We've saved a little bit of money, especially now in the age of rising costs.
Right.
So we don't have to pay that contract overhead. I just pay my project manager. So yeah, we're able to actually get a lot done that way.
That's good. That's good. I love it. You're fully integrated.
Yeah.
So your teachings, like where do people find information about what you teach? You know, how do they get a hold of you? Do you have a website?
Sure. Yeah, I do. So the great thing about our website is that you can go in there and actually find the properties that we have for sale too, and the ones that we package. Like I was saying earlier, if you are not familiar with the way you finance commercial, let us help you. You know, we will advise you. We will kind of strategize with you, and not only will we just kind of say that, we're showing it because we're doing it as well. Right. Whether you have, you're buying a fourplex, you're buying a 100-unit complex. If you want to be an active investor, there is a way to go. So yeah, go to our website, sanmore.com. You'll see a little bit of information on our loans. You'll see our properties. There's a contact us. You can kind of fill that out yourself, and it gets sent to our people, and then you can kind of get more information on mentoring if that's what you want to do. It's 7 classes. I'll just tell everyone. It's a course of 7 classes, 1 class a week, every Saturday. Each class is about an hour to 2 hours long, and it's taught directly by me.
In your office?
In my office,
okay.
Right. And even in one of the classes, like we'll go over everything. We'll go over analysis. We'll go over financing products. One of the classes, we will literally drive around, and then I'll go show you all the projects that I've done, show you what we have put into the properties, what we bought them for, what strategy we used, what lessons we learned, what the profit was made, all that stuff. It's kind of like part of the whole education module. So, yeah, and then after that, we'll analyze real actual deals. We'll go over the contract. We'll kind of show you how to actually get deals, even if it's not from us, how to actually get off-market deals. And so I put everything I have into it,
That's good.
And a lot of people tell me I should charge more for it because of just the amount of information that I give. And, I'm a nerd for this stuff, man. Once I start talking about it, it's hard for me to stop. That's why some of my classes tend to run a little longer.
Right.
But I'm charging $7,000 for it. It's something that other people would charge $25,000 to $50,000 for.
Yep. Yep. That's the ongoing rate, pretty much, especially for those other big guys that are doing big syndications and all that, right?
Exactly.
So sanmore.com, guys, go check it out. If you want to get enrolled, $7,000 is nothing for the amount of knowledge and wealth that you're going to learn just by learning and being around other people that are, going towards the same goals,
Right.
You might not do a deal your first year, but eventually, you'll get all your stuff together, and hopefully you'll do a deal pretty soon, right? But, if you have $7,000, then I hope that you have something to get going on getting your first deal together. But the amount of knowledge that Boris has put together for the last 10 years, he's going to give it to you in 7 classes, which is pretty amazing. And he's in person. So he's in your office. They get to see where you work,
Right.
So he's not some guru that just learned how another guru did it. And
and I will say something about that because I'm not an educator. It's not where I make my money. I am an actual investor. I am not out there, like showing people through courses or anything like that. That's not me. I'm actually an investor with all the faults of an investor, I guess.
Yeah.
So I love what I do, and so I just want to show it through my classes. A lot of other folks, they just kind of educate and they leave the investing world behind, right? Because they just want to educate people on what they know.
It's easier.
But I guess it is.
Educating is easier because think about it. We were wired to go to school.
Right.
Like literally, we were programmed since we're little kids to go to school, get good grades, pass, all that stuff, right? So once you start, the need for learning is bigger than, in my opinion, than the need for investing. Why is that? Because you need to learn before you invest.
Right.
So it's easier to go out there and teach other people, get a bunch of money up front. What I think is wrong is when they take all their money and then they have no money to invest.
Right.
And now they're like, okay, I got all this knowledge in me now, but I don't really have any money to move forward.
So that's a very important point because I get asked this question all the time. Like, okay, I have $5,000, I have $10,000. What do I do? Where do I put it? I want to grow. I'm like, look, I will be completely honest with you. The very best thing that you can do is invest in yourself, invest in your education.
Yeah.
The amount of misinformation that's out there and the amount of negative stigma against commercial real estate, and it's like, oh, leave that to the professionals, is amazing to me. It shouldn't be that because it's actually less riskier than like residential, like I said. So if you're gonna spend those $10,000 anywhere, make sure that you're investing in your own education. You know, it doesn't have to be with me. There's a lot of great books out there. You can start watching YouTube videos. You can self-teach. You can do what I did, which is actually not have a mentor and then make a lot of mistakes and then get in on your way there.
You pay for your education.
Oh yeah, I paid for it.
You paid the streets and contractors and bad deals that you might have done in the past, right?
Right.
I mean, we all do them. So
exactly, and that's why I believe in education heavily. And that's when somebody tells me, "Hey, how do I do what you're doing?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, learn financial products. You know, learn how to evaluate commercial property. Learn, how the benefits of forced appreciation. You know, learn to distinguish between a good deal and a bad deal. You know,
one thing that I've seen lately. So there's people willing to pay for the education, right, and willing to work on, invest in themselves. But the problem is they don't have the mindset for that either. So it has to go like a little step further than that. Like, go work on your mindset first. Get your head right, then go do the education.
right?
That way, when you take the education, you're ready for it. Limiting beliefs that we all have when we were growing up, not having enough money, whatever the case was. A lot of those things, are still in people's heads until they're 40, 50, 60 years old, right? And they go to your class and they say, well, I don't see how I can, do this deal the way you presented it. But it wasn't because they weren't financially ready, because they probably have the money in the bank.
Right.
They probably have good credit. They have a good job, a W-2 or whatnot. It's because they have all those limiting beliefs that are running around their head, and they're not ready to execute on it. So invest in your education, but go on your head first and get it right. That way, when you sit in front of Boris or somebody else that's teaching, what you need to do to be moving forward in the real estate world, you're ready for it.
Yeah, it's very important what you said. I think that a lot of that mindset can be countered with proper education, because a lot of people fear what they don't understand. It's human to do so, right? We kind of have this mental stigma of maybe when we were a kid, people telling us, "You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna be great. No, you can't do that. You're never gonna make anything of yourself." Even if, like you said, you have the money, even if you've had your savings and all that stuff. Like, there is a stigma against learning more because, like, oh, I'm still not going to know what to do. But really, once you start learning and educating yourself and you become more confident, and you maybe even partner with somebody else or shadow a mentor or shadow somebody who's actually doing it, you're going to get more confident in yourself. And I think that's what's going to change your mindset into, okay, I'm ready to do this now.
Yeah. Even if it takes you 5 years, guys, completely worth it, right? It's just that once you start doing it, it becomes like an addiction. Otherwise, you would have never stopped. You would have stopped at door number 8, and that was it, right? It's like, okay, how many more of these can I get? I remember when I got into flipping by reading a book, actually. I saw a TV show, and then I bought a book from the guy that was on the TV, and I learned about hard money loans.
Yeah.
And this is in 2009, and I was saying, man, how many of these can I get, right? And that's what started my quest on buying a bunch of properties. But I just didn't know what I didn't know. Like, I had a good job. I had money. I had W-2. And I was a W-2 guy for many years doing real estate on the side, which, by the way, is one of the best ways to, especially doing what you're doing, which is taking them down yourself.
Right.
If you are a W-2 guy or girl and you make good money, you got good credit, start buying, and investing passively, although I hate that word passively because it's not really as passive as people think it is.
Right, it's not. So being an active investor does take time investment, But I think, obviously, the goal is, if you're a W-2 person, is to, well, first of all, stop paying so much in taxes.
Right.
And then make more money and then be financially free, right? That's the goal for everyone. We can all agree on that. But really, it's about how much time you're dedicating to it. How much time are you dedicating to your W-2 job? Some people out there, and this is really popular for my friends that are employed, they're working on 60 hours,
70 hours a week,
80 hours a week. And because now they're doing the job of like 2-3 other people, corporate knows that they're not going anywhere, So stop like maybe thinking about it that way and then start thinking about yourself, This is another reason why I'm kind of against syndication because, making money for your friends and for others is fun, but there's nothing like making money for yourself, And so, like, when you syndicate and you passively invest, you're making, or even if you put it together, you're putting a deal together, you're putting all this money together, and you're looking at making $300,000, $400,000 a few years down the line. Is there something you could be doing that is going to shorten that time? Because, it comes down to the time value of money. How much money are you making per, time or per year, or per month, or for whatever? And so that's when the whole wealth generation techniques come in of forced appreciation.
So let's talk about that real quick, right? And I love the way you think when it comes to syndication as opposed to going on your own, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say, and let's just do a hypothetical example, right?
Sure.
Let's say I am a brand new guy. I don't know anything about real estate. I have a W-2 job. I'm on my 30s, maybe 40s, and I have about $50,000 saved, right? Not a lot of money, but enough to do some damage.
Right.
And good credit score, somewhere around 700s. What would the progression be for that particular student, right? Getting into multifamily, learning your techniques, into eventually owning 300 doors or whatnot. Like, what would be the first property avatar for that person? Like, what should they start looking for?
Sure. Well, I'm a big fan of starting small, and that's why I think I mentioned earlier about how the popular transgression is buy as many houses as you can and then syndicate, because I don't know how that even translates, but that's a popular way to invest.
Somebody did it. That's what it was.
Or even start wholesaling to residential investing and then syndicating. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's got to be a natural transgression to think.
Right.
I think what wholesalers are doing is great, but like I always advise all my wholesalers, start.
You got to keep some. Yeah, keep some.
You got to kind of like taste your own medicine.
Yeah.
And so after a while, invest in residential, but start investing in small commercial. If you want to jump straight from like your education wholesaling straight into multifamily, that's fine. Obviously, make sure that you know what a piece of wood costs. What an hour of labor or a day of labor out there costs nowadays. It's in the 200s now.
Yeah. There's no 100 anymore.
No. So it's you kind of have to know exactly what's going on, right? And then you can go on and start scaling that, and then go into more traditional commercial, maybe shopping centers, maybe office, whatever it is. It's a little riskier than multifamily, but it's there, and then the rewards are there for it. And then start syndicating once you actually have like plenty of property, and then plenty of forced appreciation that's already making you money, plenty of like passive income, then start syndicating. I recently met somebody that has been doing what I'm doing for the last 20 years. And what happened with him was very interesting because syndicators started reaching out to him. He was doing so much active investments. He was 100% owner of like all his apartment complexes and doing it in several different states. Syndicators started asking him just for his signature on their deal, just
to leverage him.
Yeah, because in a Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae loan, you need to prove that you have a net worth that's equal to or greater than the loan that you're seeking. So that's hard enough for syndicators, obviously. And so they have to sign on some people that are kind of financially strong. And so he's actually to the point that he doesn't have to put a dime into the deal.
He's just getting equity outright.
Yeah, he's getting he demands 25% equity from the get-go, even if he's not putting a dime in.
He's got to have some control over it too, just in case.
And so that's the nice side effect. And I get asked this question all the time too. come invest with us now. I just haven't really done it because I'm still like in my lane.
Well, you love your freedom. You know, the moment you go that syndication route, now you're liable for somebody else's money.
Exactly.
And now, if you screw up, now you got to look at that person on their face and say, "Hey, man, we lost your money or whatever."
Even if I'm not putting a dime in, I would hate to lose somebody else's money. You know what I mean? That's why also I like what I do, is because you'll never ever see me on TV saying, "Oh, he Ponzi schemed all his investors."
Right.
That doesn't exist because I don't have any investors.
Right.
So that's also a nice side effect. But I know eventually, like it happened with
even if it wasn't a Ponzi scheme, that's exactly what they're gonna say.
Yeah, exactly. It's because the news always wants to be overly dramatic and all that stuff. Even if I wasn't guilty of anything, like I didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Losing people's money is very, very high on my not to do list.
Right.
And so that's kind of like why I like what I do. So it's a very interesting kind of combination of reasons why I do what I do, including doing active investments.
Yeah, I guess if you eventually want to grow to, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 units for whatever reason, then you'll have to go that syndication route.
Well, here's the thing, Ricardo, and this is why I said I'm different. I don't believe in owning as many units as humanly possible.
Right.
No, I don't believe in that. Why? I believe in owning as much of the units that you already have, from 5% all the way to 100% of the actual deal, because that is where you get to experience forced appreciation, and that's when your net worth literally takes a jump. It's not from owning as many units. Like if I were to spend, $5,000 on a fund, on maybe a Grant Cardone fund, he's got 10,000 doors, right? I can literally go around saying, "Hey, I own 10,000 doors," like people do nowadays. My AUM, 10,000 doors. It's bullshit. It's not. Because you only own like very, 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 very small.
Yeah, you own a equity percentage of whatever.
Yeah,
if it's got equity.
So what's not popular right now is to say how much of the property you own. I don't believe in owning as many units as humanly possible as a measurement of like how well you're doing, because it should come down to like, okay, well.
That's kind of like catching up with the Jonases, right? It's like, oh, if he has 10,000, I gotta go have 10,000 or 15,000, right? To measure who's,
It's been well proven that a paid off 20-unit complex can cash flow more than 100-unit, fully syndicated, fully everything. I mean, it's gonna happen. So the 20-unit can be, for example, bought for $1 million. It'll be worth 1.8 later. You'll make $800,000 in the span of maybe a year or so.
Just by sitting on it.
Right. But how long does that take in order for you to grow if you're syndicating, from, let's say, your investment of $100,000 into $800,000? It's just kind of impossible to do that,
I agree with you.
So the syndicators are like going after these huge properties as a measurement of, like, I think, with their wealth, or I don't understand, but I'm kind of glad that I'm different, because that allows me to think differently and teach my students, like, hey, no, your wealth, and which is important. That's the most important thing, is how wealthy are you, because that's going to afford all your freedoms and your family and all that, right? How wealthy are you, and how quickly are you getting to your goals? And so the shortcut to that, people know it as syndication, and invest passively, and it's not. It's owning as much of the property as you can, because that's gonna, value add that net worth that you have.
I agree with you, man. Like, I've seen a lot of people out there going for this ungodly amount and some of them do very well.
Yeah, they do very well. Yeah, exactly.
They sell the properties. They cash in a lot of money, but I think it takes a lot, like, for somebody doing a syndication deal to make, I don't know, a $2 million return, net. You could have done that with, I don't know, smaller units, and you could have done it by yourself, right? Now, I don't think there's a better, or they're just different ways.
There are different ways.
Now, people will identify with your way, like I identify more with your way, than I do with the syndication way.
Right.
Because of the investor risk, right? I'm risk adverse now. Like I used to be very, very,
Risky.
Bring me the money. Like, let's do it, right? Now I'm like, nah. I had a guy walk into this office. He said, "Hey man, I got $10 million. Let's put it to work." And I was like, "Man, I'm sorry, I'm not your guy anymore."
Right.
And I needed the money, by the way. It's not like it's like the devil sends you that, And I was like, "Dude, I'm sorry, I'm not your guy anymore. Like I can't really do that." Right. Because I saw myself being trapped, on that hamster wheel. If I took that money, now I work for him.
Yeah, exactly. He's the boss
now like he's and I didn't realize that. I thought I was my boss for many years, and I actually retired a couple of wives. Like one of the guys told me, "So man, I just retired my wife because of you." And then later on, they became
wives.
They became my predators basically, because now I owe them money and things weren't going that well, right? So I'm completely risk adverse. So if I was gonna do something, it'll be kind of like your route. Like I just don't want to deal with tenants, and toilets and seats. And if I go, it'll probably be storages or something like that. It's just empty shelves,
And listen, there's no wrong answer.
Yeah.
When it comes to investing. It's not a race, although we all know that we kind of want to get, wealthy the quickest way possible without taking major risk. So everybody has a different strategy. That's completely okay. I'm just willing to put in my 2 cents and say, well, okay, you can set it up as you don't have to mess with any of that tenants and toilets because your operation runs so smoothly that you have managers that you're only paying, $13, $14 an hour to. It's not a lot. But it's not a lot for you, and
but it's good money for them.
Yeah, it's good money for them, and there's a lot of people out there willing to work for that.
I had a call with a student last night, and she was bragging on how she was making $16 an hour.
There you go.
She loved it. She's like
mostly high school graduates, but they work so hard, and they work day in and day out, and that's great. I'm glad that there's people like that, and I'm happy to. And I personally oversee their growth as well. So my employees, for example, I'll start, telling them, okay, this is how you can buy a house. This is how you can, buy not only a house, but buy your own apartment complex and start training them in that way. I give them, all my employees, like free education,
right?
And I empower them to make a lot of decisions. So they love me. I've never had anybody quit on me, and I'm pretty proud of that. But the most thing that I'm proud of is, the biggest thing is that I'm able to just completely remove myself from the equation. Whether it's storage, whether it's apartments, whether it's a shopping center, I'm able to completely remove myself from the equation, not deal with the tenants, and then just kind of focus on other things that are important. For me right now, that's my brokerage, right? But if I didn't have my brokerage, I could probably be retired, Yeah.
Just living off your investments.
That's it.
Good, man. Thank you so much for coming in today, brother, and sharing all your experience. Guys, don't forget to hit share, like, and subscribe, and go find Boris at Sanmore.com. Sanmore.com, right?
Sanmore.com. Sanmore.
Right. Go find him. If you want to learn from somebody that's actively doing real estate, he's the man. Investing in multiple lanes when it comes to commercial, right?
Yes, sir.
And don't forget to hit share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.